Next, we move on to the chapter 10 on knowledge and ignorance. Just as a reminder, we are on the part 2 of Guru Vachaga Kovai, which deals with practice of the truth. Usually, we don't give an introduction for the chapter and we jump right into the verses. But for this chapter, it would be good to have a lay of the land before we venture deep into the uncharted territories. In common parlance, if someone acquires facts, information, or skills through education, experience, or exposure, we call him or her knowledgeable in that specific domain. Lack thereof, we call him ignorant. Even the expert was once ignorant, and he persevered until he became an expert. I remember this placard in a local martial arts school. A black belt is a white belt who never gave up. The flip side of acquiring knowledge is that if the expert does not practice his skill continuously, he may not be adept as he once was. So, knowledge, as used commonly, has the characteristic of waxing and waning on the intellect of a person. Speaking of intellect, in the period of scientific enlightenment, the scientists are expanding the frontiers of our understanding every day. All the progress we see in material science comes from materialistic reductionism. That is, the reality that is observed in the universe can be explained by reducing them to their most basic components. As scientists explore these components, technology usually follows, giving people materialistic comfort, computational power, sleeker phones, etc. This technological breakthrough is what captures the imagination of the people. Few understand the impact of a scientific discovery on its own merit, let's say when a scientist published an academic paper. But when technology catches up, it hits mainstream. Now, while there is no denying the advances in science, if you are interested only in pure knowledge and not distracted by the toys, you will see a conundrum in the reductive materialism. Once the scientists understand the functioning of the cell, they hit a wall. That wall can only be broken by gaining more insights, by understanding what those cells are made of. And then they gain understanding of molecules that make up the cell, and then the atoms that make up the molecules, so on and so forth, subatomic particles, protons, neutrons, electrons that make up the atom, and then the fermions, leptons, and bosons that can account for the matter and the forces, well, except gravitational forces. It is safe to say that the more the scientists try to reduce, instead of simplifying things, they seem to be opening more vistas. Far from getting demotivated, the scientists are more excited in this challenge that nature poses. And while exploring this, the technologists who shut up and calculate are bound to make more breakthroughs, which are currently in the realm of science fiction, and put more toys in our hands. But the question still remains, will we ever get to the absolute knowledge of the true nature of reality through materialistic reductivism? Now let's time travel 2450 years back and hear what a wise man named Plato got to say about this. In the allegory of the cave, Plato touches upon the fundamental limitation of perception with our faulty senses, which can only grapple a superficial physical reality and believe that the shadows of the objects as true nature of reality. Our brain is boxed in a three-dimensional spatial reality, bound in a temporal chain, and we are dragged 1 second, every second, into the future. There is no way we can put our hands up and say, I want to take a break. If this three-dimensional box and the chains of time are visible, we can find that we live in conditions no better than the slaves did. With this limited brain, any knowledge we gain is shadow knowledge at best, a working model put together by our brain based on the inputs it received from limited and at times faulty sense organs. Since in this trajectory we will never reach the true nature of reality, this shadow knowledge is no better than ignorance. Going to the other end of the spectrum, from science to scriptures, are they any better? Now it is tempting to think that here I am poo-pooing science to talk in favor of the good old days where the sages grasped everything that needs to be grasped. Now, without prejudgment, pay close attention. I promise you that there is a twist. By scriptures, I want to focus on the most ancient Hindu scriptures, which are the Vedas, directly revealed to the seers that were preserved by oral tradition. Hence, it is called Shruti in Sanskrit and Edudha Kilabi in Tamil, meaning what is heard or never written down. The literal meaning of Vedas is knowledge. All the Indian system of knowledge, math, logic, debates, etymology, astronomy, medicine, architecture, drama, dance, music, all of them find their roots in the hymns, philosophy, and the ritualistic steps prescribed in the Vedas. I cannot emphasize this enough. If you ask a traditional musician, say Carnatic musician, where the origin of their music is, they will not name a human. They will say that the origin of their art, Carnatic music, lies in Vedas, Samaveda to be precise, the third of the Vedas. The fact that Vedas are expansive is illustrated in the story from Bhagavatam. There lived a great sage named Bharadwaja Rishi. He had intense desire to master all of the Vedic knowledge. But he knew that he can live only for a maximum of 100 years, so he executed severe penances and pleased Lord Indra. Indra appeared before him, and the sage requested Indra, "Please give me 100 more years so that I can complete studying the three Vedas." Indra said, "Let it be so." Then the sage Bharadwaja studied the Vedas continuously. When the end of his 100 more years approached, he again prayed to Indra and asked for 100 more years. Indra granted that as well. In this way, he did 5 times. When he prayed again to Indra for further longevity, Indra appeared before him and he decided to instruct the rishi and open his eyes. He created 3 huge mountains right in front of the rishi's eyes. When the sage saw the mountains, he thought, probably this represents the Vedic knowledge I have mastered. The 3 mountains may represent my mastery over the 3 Vedas. To his surprise, Indra took a little mud from each mountain and it became his handful. He said to the sage, "This is what you have learnt from the 3 Vedas. The rest is what you need to know. It may take many, many lifetimes to do this." The sage was shocked. Then Indra said, because this comes in Bhagavatam, a scripture that praises Krishna and other avatars of Vishnu, the Vedas are unlimited. Except Lord Vishnu, nobody can know them completely. The best thing is to realize the purpose of the Vedas. The goal of all the Vedas is Lord Vishnu. Meditate upon him and fulfill the goal of all the Vedas. Now this story is illustrated to mean Vedas cannot be completely learned by anyone. So, does the Veda give you a true nature of reality? Now the same tradition that gave Vedas also gave Bhagavad Gita, Song of the Lord, structured as discussion between the god and man in the setting of the battlefield, Kurukshetra. The setting is ripe with amazing allegory, but that's a topic for a different day. What does Bhagavad Gita opine about Vedas, which are supposed to be direct revelation of superior knowledge and not a knowledge that is gained by human effort of scientists toiling in the lab with their imperfect instruments and egos? Hint, here is the twist I mentioned, pay close attention. So in Bhagavad Gita, there is a song of the Lord. Krishna tells Arjuna in the chapter 2, verse 42. Yamimam pushpitam vacham pravadantya vipashchita Veda Vadaratha Partha Nanyadastiti Vadinaha. Those who are spiritually ignorant, their discriminative intelligence is led astray by the flowery words of the Vedas. Did you catch it? The Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna that the Vedas are nothing but flowery words. And he further tells you, enamored by the ostentatious rituals for elevation to the celestial abodes, these people, the spiritually ignorant, presume that there is no other higher principle. And then he goes on in the next two verses. While conceding that Vedas would help one please his senses, it would also help you attaining a higher birth, opulence, sensual enjoyment. But Krishna warns Arjuna that this knowledge will not give resolute determination for success on the path to discovering the true nature of reality. Finally, in verse 45, in the same chapter, he strikes the nail on the coffin with respect to the limitations of the knowledge propounded in Vedas. Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistrigunya Bhavarja Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvasto Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. The Vedas deal with the three modes of material nature, namely Rajasic, Sattvic, and Tamasic, or in English, maybe of passion, of peace, and of darkness. Rise above the three modes to a state of pure awareness, freeing yourself from dualities, eternally fixed in truth, and without concern for material gain or how to keep them safe. So even in Vedas, you are not going to find the path to the absolute nature of reality. Now, had this been told by anyone other than the Lord himself, he would be branded a Vaidik, a person who is against Vedas. Now, this is the true importance of Bhagavad Gita. It eliminates all the clutter and gives a pointer to a knowledge that even transcends Veda. We see from the above that one will not get the absolute knowledge which is eternal from either the modern science or from the scriptures. The higher knowledge, the only knowledge that matters, is the awareness of self and to abide in it. Since Sri Muruganar and Sri Bhagavan know what a weighty subject they are addressing here, they gave a lot of importance in elucidating this topic in 12 verses. The way chapter 10 is structured is as follows. Verses 1 to 3 gives a critique on material knowledge on the same lines of reasoning I mentioned, but much more poetically. It's a critical analysis of material knowledge. Now on verse 4, Sri Muruganar deals with the manifested world and consciousness and the relation between them. Verses 5 and 6 deals with the reason for ignorance. Verses 7 and 8 gives the elucidation that what appears as material objects is nothing but consciousness. Verses 9 and 10 deals with the true knowledge and nature of this knowledge. This is not a knowledge of something, but knowledge in itself. What is the true knowledge and nature of this knowledge? And finally, verses 11 and 12 deal with the fact that ignorance never existed. In the next video, we will cover the first verse in this chapter. Buckle up your seatbelt, and this is going to be one heck of a ride.